Good evening and welcome to the USD 305 February 9th, 2021 regular board meeting. It is 5:30. I'd like to call our meeting to order. My name is Gabe Grant, President of the Board of Education, and I'd like to welcome all of those who are joining us virtually, and additionally those here in the room. If you'd like to follow along with the meeting, you can access an agenda packet by going to the district website, www.usd305.com. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board Policy BCBI, public participation, states that the board may include a time for public forum and may permit, at the discretion of the board president, public comment during agenda items. During meetings limited to members of the public, we will not open for comments. However, we encourage patrons to email the board with comments by going to our website, www.usd305.com, and clicking on the Board of Education tab. Our contact information is all listed there. Proceeding on with our agenda, item 3, approval of the agenda. There is an addendum to the personnel report at your place. Do we need any other changes this evening?
We do not.
I would accept a motion to approve as amended.
Mr. President, I make a motion we approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Thanks, Ian. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, recognitions and presentations with Jennifer Keelian. Several here tonight to celebrate.
Good evening. Members of NEA Salina selected Melanie Hammond, science teacher at South High School, as USD 305 master teacher. Melanie is a believer that learning never stops and demonstrates this with efforts such as piloting standards reference grading, becoming certified as an English language learner, assistant coaching girls swim, sponsoring numerous student activities, mentoring new teachers, and being a building representative for NEA Salina. Melanie has prepared some remarks to share with you this evening, so I invite her up.
We're good? Okay, all right. When I first began planning what I was going to say tonight, I thought to myself, what would I do if I were trying to get the attention of the students in my classroom? And I thought, I need a hook. Well, as a chemistry teacher, I have a pretty unfair advantage in that department. If I were in my classroom, I could show you how to make a carbon souffle, or how to explode a gummy bear. Or I could even create a methane reaction or a combustion reaction using methane gas. But since I'm kind of limited in this environment, I thought, well, I know a lot of good chemistry jokes. And I thought, nah, I'd never get a reaction. So instead, I'm going to take you through my journey as an educator. My journey is not a typical one. Teaching is actually my second profession. My early years started similar to most of yours, though, with my parents being my first teachers. I learned from my mom that you can be a great mother and work outside the home. I remember many nights when she came home after a long day of work and still had an entire evening of work ahead of her caring for 3 young kids. I even remember spending some nights in the surgery break room when Dad was out of town and Mom was on call. And look, your kids still turned out fine. I learned from my dad that you don't have to have a 4-year degree to be successful. That doesn't mean he wasn't educated. He taught me the value of being a lifelong learner and what it means to have a strong work ethic. He also taught me not to take life too seriously. Now back to my atypical journey of being an educator. To keep this short, I'll skip ahead through my grade school and high school years, even though I could tell you a lot of great stories about the educators I had. But I'm going to begin telling you that my first career was as an X-ray tech. I decided on this field because of my love for science, as well as having someone who was in the healthcare profession that I was close to. However, soon after I began this career, I realized it just wasn't my passion. But during those 3 years as an X-ray tech, there were two really events that led me to teaching. First, there was a cooperative program in place at the time between the school district and the hospital, where as a hospital employee, you could leave work for a period of time and go be a mentor at a local grade school. The second was the opportunity to work with students from Hutchinson Community College who were doing their clinicals. I found through those two experiences that I really enjoyed teaching. I also learned that high school might be a better fit for me. That's when I decided to go back to school. I spent the next 2 years commuting from here to Manhattan to get my education degree. I decided in my second year that I was going to try my hand at substitute teaching. The experience taught me the importance of a well-written subplan. It also reinforced my belief that high school was definitely where I should be. However, having said that, the experience of subbing in a grade school classroom gave me a tremendous amount of respect for what grade school teachers do. They are on all day long. They are masters at having control over their classrooms, and they are so skillful at seamless transitions so that everything runs smoothly. I really have the utmost respect for them. Here begins my more typical teacher journey. Writing this speech, as terrifying as it was, gave me the chance to reflect on my teaching practice over the last 20 years. I have to admit that I was not a great teacher my first year. This was before PLCs were really a thing, which is just a small group of teachers working together. I pretty much kept to myself. I was afraid that if I asked for strategies to engage students in learning or how to have better classroom management, that others might think that I didn't know what I was doing or that I wasn't fit to be a teacher. I can't pinpoint really a specific event that changed my thinking on this, but I think just as I came to know the people around me and I became more comfortable in what I was doing and more confident as a teacher, that perspective began to change. I realized the wealth of knowledge I had surrounding me. I began to crave learning from others and finding new ways to get kids excited about the content. I also began to truly take to heart the saying, kids never care how much you know until they know how much you care. Relationships are the backbone of teaching. I want kids to know that I care about them as people, not just as subjects in my classroom. I want them to know that even if they aren't successful in my classroom, they're still good people. I also started to really modify my teaching philosophy to reflect my belief that everyone deserves more than one opportunity to learn. Even if you have a bad day or a bad month, or you have so many distractions outside of school that it's hard to focus, you deserve as many chances as it takes to be successful. And even if you choose not to take advantage of those opportunities, you're still a good person. Well, now that you've heard probably more than you wanted to about my teaching philosophy, I want to take a moment to thank some of those people who have contributed to my journey over the last 20 years. First, I want to thank my family. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for all that you taught me. Some of the ways I've already mentioned, but there are so many more than I have time to fit in tonight. I want to thank my husband, who's my stronghold. He's always supported me both financially and emotionally. Initially, as I went back to school to get my teaching degree, and later on through 2 master's programs, I couldn't have done it without you. And I want to thank my children for always being honest with me, sometimes brutally honest, about my hair, my clothes, the things I say or do. You taught me to have tough skin and never take things too personally, 2 very important traits in the teaching profession. And I want to thank all 3 of you for loving me even when I had spent all of my energy and patience on my students in the classroom. I know living with me is not always easy. Next, I'd just like to take a moment to mention the other teachers in my building and their contributions. They've always been willing, but not only willing, but excited to share their thoughts, ideas, and strategies on best classroom practices, especially those in my science department. We might not always see eye to eye on everything, but we all strive to do what's best for kids. I'd argue that no successful teacher has ever become successful all on their own. I also want to thank my good friend and colleague, Nikki Chamberlain. You can't teach next to her for 18 years and not be inspired to be a better teacher. I'd like to thank the amazing administrators that I've had over the years. Their contributions oftentimes get overlooked. I'd like to thank them for helping me step into leadership roles that otherwise I never would have realized I could handle. The first really big leadership role I had was as student council sponsor. Boy, was there a learning curve there. I had to figure out how to organize a parade, plan and coordinate coronation ceremony, and how to plan countless pep assemblies. Sometimes you need a little push to get you there. I learned a lot through that experience. And just last year, I was given the opportunity to lead my PLC in implementing standards reference grading, which is such a shift in the traditional grading system and how student assessment is handled that it would not have been possible if it weren't for the support and encouragement of an amazing administrator. I'd like to take a moment to thank the school district as a whole for providing teachers opportunities to continue learning throughout their career through programs such as Los Estrellas, where numerous teachers were able to take graduate level courses and get the training needed to receive their ESL endorsement. And like the Teacher Leadership Academy, which allows teachers to hone their leadership skills and gain the confidence and experience to be teacher leaders in their buildings and throughout the district. I honestly don't think I'd be standing here in front of you tonight if it weren't for that program. I don't want to miss the opportunity to also say thank you to our Board of Education and NEA. I feel very, very fortunate to be in a district where these two entities work collaboratively and do their best to create a positive learning environment for students and good working conditions and benefits for their teachers, support staff, and other faculty. I know that especially in the midst of a pandemic and financial difficulties, that this is not an easy task. So I want to say thank you for working within the bounds of the many limitations you are under to make sure that USD 305 continues to be the place where students and staff want to be. I also want to thank you for the many things you do to recognize teachers, to show them they're supported, that they matter, and that what they do every day in their classrooms makes a difference. Thank you.
Melanie, thank you. And now we would like to extend to you our congratulations as the Salina Master Teacher of the Year. Your picture has been placed outside this boardroom alongside other outstanding educators, and we present to you a marble apple as memento of this honor. We'll take a picture. Let's see here. Because of the suspension of the Emporia State University Kansas Master Teacher Program due to COVID-19, Melanie's Emporia State University nomination will actually occur in the 2021-2022 cycle. We now offer Melanie our congratulations.
And congratulations from all of us. Thank you.
Next, we have our Horizon Awards. These are teachers who have demonstrated excellence during their first full year of teaching. They are nominated to be Horizon Teachers. From that pool of nominations, one secondary and one elementary teacher is chosen. We are proud to announce this year's Horizon Award recipients, Marissa McCartney, business teacher at Central High School, and Laura Bills, second grade teacher at Usener Elementary School. Marissa, as our secondary Horizon teacher, is in her second year as business teacher at Central High, and she recorded a special video message that will play.
I wish I had a funny joke to begin with, but all I have is a question. how does an accountant become a high school teacher? Well, 2 years ago, I thought I'd be working as an accountant for a billion-dollar industry. But today, I'm very thankful that God knew my heart and put me on the path that led me here. I first give glory to God for the many blessings He has provided this last year and a half. Second, I want to thank the board and district office for allowing me the opportunity to do this virtually so that I can be with my basketball family tonight. Virtually is very fitting for this year. I have appreciated your strong leadership as a district during these unprecedented times and your desire to always put our students first. Third, I just want to say a full-hearted thank you to the teachers and administrations at Salina Central. When I graduated from Salina Central in 2015, I was so ready to go out and make my mark on this world. I wasn't quite sure what that looked like, but USD 305 prepared me, a first-generation college student, with the tools to be successful. The teachers at Salina Central prepared me not just by meeting standards, but they prepared me with life lessons, with role modeling, and with a listening ear when necessary. Thank you to the administrators and teachers who have helped me figure out specific classroom policies, giving me insight into connecting with tough students, and have helped me find the resources needed to make my classroom successful. This award is not mine, it is all yours. It is a reflection of the wonderful support I have received at Central. When viewing my classroom, I view my students as the customers and my teaching as the service I offer. I want to nourish that relationship with my customers so they continue to come back and are engaged. I'm constantly asking students for feedback on how a lesson could be improved or what is working or not working well in the classroom. This improvement process is constant. I am so impressed sometimes with the ideas they come up with. For example, instead of them creating review questions on a Google Doc, they ask to do a Google form. What a great idea. Students are not allowed to complain in my class unless they can offer up a solution, and I'm so willing to listen to that solution. Many of us have tried to fix things via YouTube. However, do we ever teach students how to teach themselves something? Sometimes we must move to the role of facilitator, which is difficult when you love to teach a subject and you like to have control in the classroom. In my classes, we do a lot of project-based learning and discovery-based learning. So what this looks like is real-world application and individualized learning. In my computer classes, a student may be given a trend like blockchain and responsible for teaching it to the class. In my business classes, it may look like a student creating their own business and having to apply concepts about marketing, financial, management, and economics that we had previously discussed in the class. Students learning to critically think, solve problems, and communicate is crucial to their future. At the heart of my teaching will always be building a stronger relationship with students, so they know that they matter and that they are cared for. I want them to be prepared to go out into the world and make it a better place. No matter their passions or their path, they are our future, and that is an investment worth investing in. My challenge is for those of you listening. Share your knowledge, share your failures that turned into lessons, share your passion, share a listening ear. Society demonstrates that we have to be first to win. Well, the reality of it is, we win by building a district of great teachers that prepare students for life after high school. So invest in each other. Each day, our students learn. Each day, we learn. We must demonstrate our dedication to being lifelong learners. The world is changing. Many of us have been challenged by technology. Many of us have improved the effectiveness of our teaching through technology this year. We have faced arguably more challenges during this year than maybe ever before. See the opportunities in every challenge. This year, I was able to connect more one-on-one with students. This year, I expanded my knowledge of Google Meets and other applications. This year, my students learned to communicate professionally over the internet. This year, my students were given more responsibility than ever before. This year, many of my students realized the privilege it was to be in the classroom. This year, both my students and I learned more about ourselves and the world because of COVID. I had graduated from KU with my bachelor's and master's in accounting and then went on to pass my 4 CPA exams. While working as a corporate accountant, I intellectually loved the work, but I was not fulfilled. I knew I needed to make a real difference to be fulfilled. That is why I joined USD 305. Each of you in this district has the opportunity to be a difference maker. Our world needs you, our students need you, so seize the opportunity and be the difference maker. I'm not talking about curriculum or standards, I'm talking about the listening ear, the sometimes necessary moments of tough love, and the determination to make students feel heard and valued. We have the opportunity to change the world. We have the opportunity to encourage love over hate and acceptance over party alignment. Never take for granted the influence of a teacher or a mentor. Thank you.
Thanks to Marissa for that. Lara Bills is our Elementary Horizon teacher, and she teaches second grade at Usener Elementary School. On Lara's behalf, I will now read her speech for you as if she were delivering it herself. For me, becoming a teacher was inevitable, no matter how hard I tried to fight it. My mom has been a teacher, a phenomenal teacher, for as long as I can remember. Her love for her students, her incredible determination, and an amazingly strong work ethic have inspired me and played a huge part into molding me into the person and teacher I am today. As the oldest of 4 siblings, I really honed in on my teacher skills by forcing my brothers and sister to play school, giving them constant reminders about their behavior and providing them with years of me acting as resident mother hen. I can only imagine the relief my siblings felt when I finally had my own classroom and they were able to graduate from being my first students. On a more serious note, I have always loved helping others and making sure that they are able to see the good in themselves. As I went through my own schooling, I was blessed with several teachers who made me feel like a somebody, to quote Kid President. These teachers went out of their way to provide me with love, consistency, and opportunities. On the flip side, I also had a handful of teachers who heavily motivated me to be completely different than they were in the classroom. It is incredibly important to me to help my students grow as individuals, emotionally, socially, and academically, while helping them realize their potential. My students constantly hear me call them world changers and hear the phrase, "You make our world a better place." I wholeheartedly believe that, and I know that kids in my classroom, past, present, and future, will continue to make our world a better, more just, and a brighter place with their leadership qualities and thoughtful decision-making and problem-solving. Now, as I am mere weeks away from becoming a mom, I am even more motivated to make a positive impact on my students and help them succeed. I know what treatment and love I would expect my daughter to receive at school, and I am working my hardest every day to ensure that I am offering that same grace, love, structure, and support to my own students. The question, how would I want my daughter's teacher to handle this situation, constantly plays in the back of my mind as I continue my journey through education, being an advocate and a positive, safe adult for the kids that come through my classroom only becomes more and more important to me. My hope for my classroom is that it quickly becomes my students' home away from home, where they are able to learn as much, if not more, about being good people as they do about reading and math. My students deserve to come to school feeling safe and cared for. Once their basic needs are met, only then can we begin to expect and work towards academic growth. It is important to me, that my class functions as a family. We spend a lot of time getting to know one another through team building and community building activities, focusing on learning about each other's lives and perspectives. In my classroom, diversity is something that is respected and celebrated. In my quest for my room to function as a classroom family, we have ample opportunities to work on disagreeing respectfully, problem solving, working through challenges that feel overwhelmingly big, and celebrating everyone's successes, no matter the size of the success. I feel confident in saying that building a strong foundation in these areas will serve my students well in the future. It is my #1 goal as a teacher to ensure that my students feel loved and capable from the very first day that they step foot in my classroom. My ultimate hope for them during their second grade school year is that they recognize how important, worthy, and special they are, even if they aren't made to feel that way in other aspects of their lives. My students experience the power of positive self-talk, as well as the power of love, trust, and family. My students never have to question my love and respect for them, and by the end of the school year, they learn never to question their love and respect for themselves. I hope that my students remember, long after they leave my care, that I believe in them, I will fight for them, and that every challenge they run into is figure-outable. Let's see. And in recognition of the Horizon Awards, Marissa and Lara's pictures have been placed in the hallway outside of this room. They are awarded engraved plaques and apple pins for this recognition. Congratulations. And now we will move into Superintendent's Awards, Superintendent's Excellence Awards. Due to COVID, we will recognize these students by reading their names, listing them in our board briefs, and mailing a certificate to their home. Qualifying for state, Central High School Choir had 13 state qualifiers. Central Choir students broke both a building and district record, with 13 students making it into the 2021 KMEA All-State Choir. They are Chloe Chesney, sophomore, Mackenzie Clark, senior, Shayla Dow, senior, Isaac French, junior, Peyton Greep, junior, Chloe Highsmith, sophomore, Harper Johnston, sophomore, Emma Kelly, junior, Lily Myers, junior, Joel Fannensteel, senior, Haven Rapp, senior, Josh Warner, junior, Patrick Zrubeck, senior. Ryan Holmquist is the coach. Congratulations. Our next group is Central High School Theater with 29 state qualifiers, which includes the entire cast and crew of Antigone Tri-State Main Stage production. They are seniors, Spencer Angel, Sophie Kraft, Toby Duckworth, Joshua Cunningham, Hannah North, Aaron Flax, Sophie Lenkwitz, Sirik Dow, Avery Smith, Madeline Nash, Nelson Gooch, Chloe White, Isabel Rubino, Ivan Solis. Juniors are Ethan Henry, Tyler Campbell, Lily Myers, Josh Warner, Emma Kelly, Charles Goldbach, Maddie Farthing, Peyton Wood. Sophomores, Chloe Highsmith, Harper Johnston. Freshmen are Ben Campbell, Will Ebel, Alec Rangel. Solo musical superior rating, Joelle Fennesteel, senior, and Lily Myers, junior. Barb Hilt is the Central High Theater director. Congratulations. Our next group is South High School Theater with 10 state qualifiers. Students who participated in the joint Thespian Festival hosted by Texas Thespians were Ashley Caraway, senior, Leslie Gordado, freshman, Victoria Molina, junior. Students who participated in the joint Thespian Festival and honored Thespian Troupe program through Kansas Thespians were Mia Dennett, junior, who also served as state board member, Cadence Dixon, excuse me, junior, Shelby Stolzenberg, junior, Andrew Lagerman, senior, who also served as state board member, Ethan Lanier, senior, Melina Sinslar, sophomore, Wysinia Torres, junior, and Kate Lindsay is the South High Theater director. Congratulations. Our next group is Central High School Orchestra, who who had one state qualifier, and he is Nelson Gooch, Senior. This is Nelson's second year making state orchestra. Lindsay Modine is the orchestra director. Congratulations. Central High School Art had 6 state qualifiers who were honored at the 2021 Scholastic Art Awards in Wichita. They were Rebecca Franklin, Senior, Alexis Ronning Franco, Senior, Lena Kennard, Sophomore, Sydney Raman, Senior, Mallory Wispy, Junior, Beatrice Welbrock-Talley, Sophomore. Larry Cullens and Kirsten Dykes are the art teachers. Congratulations. Our last group is South High School debate with 16 state qualifiers. Novice state qualifiers, all freshmen, were Soren Manenbach, Lillian Artis, Sarah Kimani, Nardicella Garcia, Ryan Franks, Camden Phelan. 4-speaker state debate, 5th at state, were Eileen Escobedo, Senior, Miriam Benavides, Senior, Seth Carter, Junior, Francisco Guadardo, Sophomore, Denelyn Vasquez, Sophomore, Faith Bates, Sophomore. 2-speaker state debate, state champions, Maya Daly, Senior, and Tiana Marion, Senior. 10th place, Ava Williamson, Sophomore, and Brianna Fleming, Sophomore. Megan Hageman is the coach. Congratulations. And last, we have our You Make a Difference Awards. The You Make a Difference Award is presented to staff members whose exemplary actions support students, colleagues, and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Recipients of these awards receive a lapel pin and a handwritten note personally delivered by a Board of Education member. Tomasa Dominguez, custodial staff at South High School. Tomasa is always willing to step in and help with whatever is needed. At the beginning of the year, she saw a new student who likely needed help with directions. When offers of assistance in English didn't help, she assisted in Spanish, providing much needed directions and support. Thank you for making a difference, Tomasa. Marcy Ramsey, instructional assistant at Oakdale Elementary School. Marcy's flexibility impresses everyone around her. Regardless of changing tasks and schedules, she always shows up with a smile and a great attitude. She provided one-on-one support to students in a quarantine class and follows up with students she's worked with in the past. Thank you, Marcy, for making a difference. Rosemary Gearing, instructional assistant, Cottonwood Elementary School. When students work with Rosemary, they know they are loved and that she believes in them. A skilled seamstress, she has generously made hundreds of masks for staff and students. The world needs more selfless and caring adults like Rosemary, said a Cottonwood colleague. Thank you for making a difference, Rosemary. Laura Hinka, administrative assistant, Central High School. Laura is known for her efforts on behalf of staff and students. They are considered tireless. She is described as a true inspiration to others, someone driven to find answers to problems. Laura is willing to do whatever is needed to help everyone in her building. Thank you for making a difference, Laura. Cassie Owen, math teacher, Lakewood Middle School. Cassie is a natural leader among her colleagues, demonstrated when she planned and delivered a school-wide lesson to Lakewood faculty about the second quarter hybrid schedule. Her leadership reduced stress and frustration for both faculty and students, helping to smooth the transition to the new hybrid schedule. Thank you, Cassie, for making a difference. Danelle Seha, attendance secretary at Central High School. Danelle works in the attendance office, performing duties and monitoring truancy. But since COVID-19 emerged, she provides critical support to the school nurse, tracking illness-related absences, updating data, and communicating with Spanish-speaking parents and guardians. Thank you for making a difference, Danelle. Julie Work, receptionist switchboard at South High School. Julie is known for her ability to multitask effectively and effortlessly. She often comes in early or stays late to help colleagues, connects with students so they are at ease in the office, schedules subs, types reports, and answers phones, all with a professional and calm manner. Thank you for making a difference, Julie. Brian Bell, 5th grade teacher at Stewart Elementary School. Brian's kindness and connections with his students are memorable. He follows up with former 5th graders, sending them notes of encouragement to support their first year at middle school. His thoughtfulness and kind acts result in Brian being a beloved and productive teacher. Thank you, Brian, for making a difference. Lynn Boxman, instructional assistant, Sunset Elementary School. Lynn is known to go above and beyond. She graciously accepts a variety of different tasks and consistently completes them on time and with accuracy. If she completes her work, she always offers her assistance to others to help make their jobs or day better. Thank you, Lynn, for making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Moving on to item 5 of our agenda, approval of the consent agenda items. Those items this evening are minutes of the January 12th, 2021 regular meeting, the personnel report and its addendum, financial reports, including the January bills list, December treasurer's report, December investment report, December journal entries, approval of the following encumbrance listings. First, to Dell for the purchase of Chromebooks in the amount of $498,000. To DeLang Landon Financial Services, Inc. for the Commvault backup and restore system renewal in the amount of $29,440.22. To JMH Cleaning for an open purchase order in the amount of $36,000 to support the operations department through the end of the 2020-2021 school year. The following encumbrance listings for food and nutrition services for projected expenses for the 2021-2022 school year. First, to U.S. Foods in the amount of $1.6 million for the period effective August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2022. To Highland Dairy in the amount of $245,000 for a period effective July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. And finally, to BD4 Distributing, Inc. in the amount of $23,500 for a period effective July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Approval of the audit contract with Agler Gaddett Chartered for audit services for the year ended June 30th, 2021 in the amount of $19,950. Approval of the beverage pouring and snack vending service agreement amendment for a 2-year extension through June 30th, 2023. And approval of the Kansas Preschool Pilot Grant application for funding in the amount of $170,065. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. And a second?
Emma Doherty, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Item 7A on our action agenda, athletic advertising proposal with Superintendent Exline.
Good evening. I am here just as a follow-up to the presentation that we made at the last Board of Education meeting. Ken Stonebreaker and Greg Mehring and I shared with you an advertising proposal that the athletic board is bringing forth that would allow us to advertise at our athletic venues. I do want to bring to your attention one adjustment, and that is on page 3, and it is highlighted in yellow. One of the comments that was made during the last meeting was that we should perhaps consider wording that would allow future athletic locations to be considered for advertising. And so we did insert wording that says future athletic facility locations will also be considered for advertising using the parameters presented in this proposal. So if we would have an additional site, tennis courts or something at some point, that this would allow us to advertise in those spaces. It would not open this up to classroom spaces. That, of course, would come back to you for approval. So with that, do you have any questions or need any further clarification?
I apologize that I wasn't able to be here in person for the last meeting, and I was gonna make a comment over the phone, but about that time, things kind of ended. But for some of our board members who weren't here, about 3 years ago, we made a policy adjustment, and this kind of clicked with me. When we talked about, or when Ms. Exline talked about the shortage in the athletic funds being about $150,000, about 3 years ago, the board at the time, we made a decision to waive participation fees for all athletes. And if I remember right, the impact was about $100,000.
Correct.
So when I look at this, I guess I'm supportive of this, and I think that it's a great way to maybe, we're using sponsors to offset those participation fees that could sometimes be a barrier for some students, and that was a challenge that we had in the past.
Last time I said this proposal made me queasy. I decided I'd better get a better way to describe it, and I've decided that, well, I feel like to do this, we are selling our students' eyeballs and our parents' eyeballs, and I feel like this is, well, we are saying that by advertising for these people, these businesses and others, we are not promoting their products, or we're not endorsing their products, but I don't think there's any way you can sort of separate that out. And so I understand that it's an important piece of the budget if we include it, but I do not support this, and I just wanted to say that I don't think we should be selling our students' eyeballs to the highest bidders. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move we recommend the board of, we approve the athletic advertising proposal as presented.
In a second? Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Thank you. Item 6B, 2021-2022 school calendar.
Okay. Each year, we ask the board to approve the school calendar, and you had approved a tentative school calendar for 2021-2022. The calendar committee, which is a group of teachers, administrators, board member representation, met, and we are recommending a change to the 2021-22 calendar. And it says in here that the committee proposes that the first semester, its first quarter, move from October 7th to October 14th. The discussion that the committee had was that we really felt like that having a little bit later date for the end of the quarter would allow us to do conferences earlier in the year, which would allow us to communicate better with parents if students were struggling. And so the recommendation would be to make that one adjustment to the calendar that you had already approved and to move the first quarter from the 7th to the 14th of October.
If I may weigh in quickly too, the prior calendar had 40 days in the first quarter and 49 in the second quarter. And it's not that big of a deal, but this change also brings the two quarters closer together in terms of number of days.
Very good. Any questions? Thank you, Mark, for serving on that committee. Is there a motion? Ian?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2021-22 school calendar as presented.
In a second.
And majority second?
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Item 6C, 2022-2023 tentative school calendar.
Okay, so the 2022-23 tentative school calendar, the same group worked on that, and the recommendation that we're bringing forth to you mirrors what you just approved. And so you have in front of you a copy of the proposed calendar with the end of quarters, and it is essentially the same calendar. We did make sure that the spring break mirrored what was happening at the Kansas Board of Regents. K-Board did decide that they were going to have the same spring break across the state, and so we made sure that we are having our spring break at that same time. We think that that's a family-friendly way to approach this. So very similar to the calendar you just approved.
It's hard to even think that far into the future. Is there questions or comments?
Just one quick additional thing that was a good reminder for me, and perhaps it would be for the rest of y'all as well. Ms. Zexline and others talked about the required 178 student contact days, the 1,116 hours that are required in that, number of work days and so forth, and just those numbers are things that I don't think about every day, so it was good to have those in my mind again, and I just thought I'd call those out here, all of which factor into building the calendar in the first place.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Jim?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the tentative calendar for 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Thank you. In a second. Deanna?
I second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, welcoming Shanna Rector. Item 6D, summer school proposal for 2021.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hold this up. Okay, I wanted to go over the summer school programs, our submission to the board in regards to what we would like to do for our families and our students this summer. Some general information. This is information that you have in your board packet, and a little bit of difference here than what you've seen in the past. We are looking at shifting the calendar date of our summer program a little deeper into June and conducting that from June 15th to July 23rd. The rationale for making this move is that we're very cognizant of the demands that the school year has had on our students, our families, and our staff. And we really do believe that a break between the end of the school year and to have a little bit of time of summer before we start summer school programming would allow everyone to be able to enjoy a little bit of summer before we start right back up into meeting the needs of students in summer school. And so by looking at this calendar, one of the things that we have always been very cautious of in the past is making sure that we recognize the July 4th holiday and families' needs to be able to be together and to travel at that time. So what we've done here is we've broken up the kind of that 5 to 6 week period that we've had traditionally for summer school into 2 sessions. A session 1 that will occur between June 15th and July 2nd, and a session 2 that will take place between July 7th and July 23rd. What that will do is that really gives us kind of a very scenario that's very similar to what we've had in the past in having 5 to 6 weeks, but it breaks it up into that 3-week chunk to create flexibility and accessibility for our families. And what we're going to do here is we're going to focus 1 session on math and 1 session on reading at the elementary level, and then at the high school level, you'll see that we will have different courses that may be in different sessions, and at the middle school level also separating it out between math and reading. And students may be able to be part of the entire program going over both sessions, or they may choose to be part of session 1 or session 2. And depending upon the numbers of staff and the number of students, we may actually have programming that's going on first session, having both math and reading, and we have students in either one of those sessions and then repeating that the second session and having both math and reading. But really our limiting factor here is going to be on staffing and students and what needs we see and what roles we can fill with our staff. So that is a change there. The other change that you're going to see is that we are going to be able to use ESSER elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds to help support our summer school programming. We have used at-risk funds in the past. These funds really are dedicated to trying to look at the gaps and the needs of students that COVID-19 has really kind of allowed or taken away maybe a little bit from the students in the sense of our ability to meet students' needs and families' needs. And so these funds will allow us to help fill those gaps, to look at what kinds of needs we see within our families and our students, and how to try to put all of our resources and energies and efforts to making this a time to recapture for our students in the summer. So that's a little bit different in how we have funded it before. The rest of the funding will come from tuition at the high school level for enrichment classes, driver's ed, and ACT, but at the elementary and the middle school, all funds will be used to pay for families, so there is no fee to middle school or elementary families. And as we look at the location of these programs, we see that there's a change there. So for many, many years, we have had the program at Central High School. We have now moved, or we're proposing to move the program to South High School. What that allows us to do is it allows us to kind of share that aspect of that we serve an entire community. And so serving the community at the central location has made accessibility and the location more convenient for some families and so forth. And now we're going to move that to the south location. It also gives us a chance to highlight the beautiful facility that we have at South. And it just kind of shares the love, per se, to have it at both buildings throughout this course. And then on the enrollment process, our enrollment process is going to be publicized in March. We will be adding more details to that enrollment process of daily times and looking at exact locations for the elementary. Right now, we do not have a location identified for the elementary. We are looking at, depending upon numbers, maybe having more than one location. In the past, we had usually had just one location for elementary programming. If our numbers are high enough this year and we have enough staff, we would like to see that spread to multiple buildings so we can meet more needs of students. And those locations will be determined once we know the number of staff that we have and also the number of students. And so we will bring that information back to you as we have identified those, and then that will be part of the enrollment process. The rest of the information that you'll have, and you'll see that the high school information, our programming at high school really has not changed. We have the ACT preparation class, the driver's education course, and we actually just were part of a meeting on Monday, so the state is still supporting driver's education and suggesting that to take place. And we also have the enrichment courses that students can basically take to allow some freedom within their schedules, and so we see computer apps 1, computer apps 2, and speech. So these have traditionally been taught in our district. And then the credit recovery courses. And so this is to allow students who have failed courses to recover that. We are working very hard in both high schools right now to look at different ways to meet credit recovery needs. But we do know that the summer will also be a time that we can kind of fill that need for students and help them earn the credits that they need for graduation. And the credit recovery courses, we do look at those courses as being able to fund with at-risk funds. The middle school, over the last couple of years, we have moved that program to be more of a project-based real-world application. And so we had students that worked with the nursing home last year. We had students that 2 years ago, and also students that worked on a bee project for Lakewood Park. And so we're really excited to find an opportunity for students again this year with a problem-based learning, and that will also include math and reading, and making sure that we're looking at those organizational, those executive functioning skills as well. So we'll have 2 sessions for middle school. One session will focus on math, one session will focus on reading, and if students want to partake in both of those, they will be able to take both sessions. And then I've already spoke to the elementary in a little bit more detail in the sense that we are going to have math and reading there, and this will be prescriptive in the sense of looking at what are those needs of students. And so the hard work of getting students placed into the right classrooms will be taking place this spring. And again, students will have the ability to either be part of both sessions or one or the other session, depending upon their needs and the family's abilities, to be able to partake in summer school programming. As we look at the summer school personnel, there is a change in the program director. I do have to say immense gratitude to Kelly Heisman, who has stepped away from this position. And so we wish her the very best, and I know that she is taking a little time with her family this summer, and so we have the wonderful opportunity to bring on Krista DeVoe. And Krista has been part of our summer school program and actually worked alongside Kelly Heisman over the last couple of years. And so she's going to be able to come into that program, continue its strengths, and then also as we think through what we need to do this summer to meet students' needs, she's ready to be flexible and to determine how do we move forward and to support a program that is addressing the needs this summer. And then this will be the second year for our elementary program director, Tricia McVeigh, and she did lots and lots of planning last year. We did not have the opportunity to have summer school or Jumpstart program, but all of the lessons that she learned in the planning process of last year, she's bringing to the table this year, so we're excited to have her back. And then the classroom instructors at all levels will be hired through an application process that we will start after approval or with your approval of the summer school program. Then we can go ahead and start getting into those details and advertising these positions and providing more information to our staff. Any questions about the summer school program?
Understanding the challenges that COVID has caused some of our students, have you done any preliminary assessments as far as what you believe that impact might be on the summer school program, and if there are going to be any challenges based off of that?
Well, as we're looking at our data, we have some data that actually is very supportive of the fact that our students have been reading and connecting with literature, and so we've seen some of our scores improve, but we also know from the classroom instruction that we may not have been able to progress as far as we need to, and I think that we would see that across the board. We also know that for having our students in AM PM schedule, I think the daily contact with students at secondary and teachers has increased our ability to meet their needs, but we also know that as students have not been able to attend school as regularly or as long as they have traditionally, there are going to be gaps for students. And so we want to make sure that we have a summer school program that looks at it a little differently, and that's why we're looking at math and reading separately. That's going to allow us to really hone in and make sure that we have that good, solid foundation and structure that supports math. And then we're supporting the reading and maybe allowing the students to have that centralized focus on one subject. We hopefully will see that's going to help benefit them and meet their needs. We also, looking at the flexibility of having 2 different sessions, we do think that that will allow families to take part in summer school, even if we have a family that only takes part in the 3-week program instead of the entire 6. We believe that that is going to be taking that student further into next year than if they would not have had the ability to. And so we think that having a 6-week program may have kept families from being able to take part, and so that's one of the reasons we split that as well. Did that answer your question? Thank you.
I was interested to hear that you got to pay for some of this with ESSER funds instead of high risk, and does that give us more high risk money for something else?
We are actually looking at how to expand our supports across the district in both at-risk and with the ESSER funds. We know that as we move forward over the next couple of years, there are going to be gaps and needs that we have not even anticipated. And that this isn't something that once we get back into school regularly, does everything else kind of go away from what we have experienced this year? And the answer is we know that we're going to find that we're going to have to continue those supports. So what the ESSER funds will allow us to do is, yes, use at-risk funds maybe differently than we've used in the past and be able to provide deeper programming and programming that might extend into the school year differently than what we've had.
Thank you.
On the application process for choosing faculty, when's that going to start?
Actually, that'll probably start sometime here and at the end of February, beginning of March. What we would like to see is we'd like to know how many staff members are going to be involved with our summer school program. So that way, that helps us as we're advertising what programs are available. That gives us a better picture of what we will be able to offer, because we cannot have summer programming without the dedication and the skills and the expertise of our teachers. And so we know that our limiting factor per se is going to be our teachers, and that's one of the reasons too that we looked at having a schedule that would hopefully give them some reprieve a little bit and some relaxation, and then help us back into the summer school program. So once we know that information, we will have that advertised into February, beginning of March, identify which staff we're going to use, and then we really plan to do a rollout to families about the enrollment process in March and kind of tie that to the parent-teacher conference time that we have at the end of March. So we should have staffing identified probably mid-March to end of March.
Very good, thank you.
My question, I know the timing and things like that will be announced later. Condensing it to a 3-week from a 6-week, does that mean there's more time in that 3-week day from a day perspective, I guess?
One of the things that we want to look at this year is that we may extend the length of the class time just a little bit, but by looking at the research, one of the things that we do know is that we cannot necessarily extend it to an all-day program, because what the research says is that you really do need to have that condensed chunk of time in the summer. By looking at math separately from reading, what we really are wanting to do is to focus that math instruction and to incorporate enrichment activities with that, incorporate the social emotional aspect. And what we have done before is we've kind of split our time between the reading and the math. And by doing that, you kind of are putting everything right there on top of the student in one day, which is, in our traditional sense, having that 6 weeks and coming from a school year that had been traditional, that was okay. But when we think about it this year and think about the needs that we have and the experiences our students have had, we think that by chunking it, we're going to be able to go deeper and also more intentional and allow the students to focus. I'm working on my math skills in an enriched kind of activities that also include social emotional, and hopefully by focusing their brain on that one segment, that it may give us better results. And so we will be looking at different measures to look at those results, and this may be something that kind of takes us into the future as we think about how to look at summer school and how to serve those needs.
One of the challenges that we talked about was if we teach reading and math at the same time, sometimes the group of students that needs to be together for math to get real targeted instruction is a little bit different than the group of students that needs to be together for reading to get real targeted instruction. So by separating the reading and the math and allowing families to choose both if their child needs it, or just math if that's where their child needs it, or just reading, it'll allow us to have more targeted instruction for a longer duration within a shorter window. And so we really do need to pull some data and see, but we think that given where the gaps appear to be in the data that we're looking at regarding student learning, that this will be a better model for this summer. And then we'll share with you how it went and reassess moving forward whether we should go back to the prior model or whether this really is a better way to do it.
I appreciate that. I think it also follows, and the feedback I've heard is the changes we've made in the high school schedule has really allowed more focus. So I see this as kind of a continuum of that.
And really having the ability to maybe have multiple sites, multiple elementary sites, and that allows us to, again, like Mrs. Exline said, to target the needs of those students and be very purposeful in the groupings that we're able to do, just because we have that flexibility of having just one singular focus of let's get all of our math students into the groups that they need to be in to support their needs. So we're really excited about the possibilities, and sometimes, when we think about all of the things that we've experienced, we are growing stronger in our ability to step back, look at things that have always been done a certain way, and say, can we do that different? And so this is a summer for us to look different and hopefully be able to meet the needs at a greater capacity.
Questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the 2021 summer school program as presented.
Thank you. In a second.
Emma Doherty, second.
Thanks, Emma. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Rector. On to the discussion agenda. Item 7A, Opportunity Now update with Mike Lowers.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me come. It's great to see you in person instead of on a screen, so thank you for doing that. Wanted to give you an update on our special education restructure. I've presented this before, but I wanted to kind of let you know where we were at currently in this process. Going to focus tonight just on the change at Lakewood, the Therapeutic Learning Center move over to Opportunity Now. So Opportunity Now, as you know, you were all kind enough that we got to move to the Salina West facility last year, and this coming year, we're gonna expand the grade levels at that school. So what is the point of the restructure? Well, what's our end goal? We want to place students in the least restrictive environment. That is the federal law, and I really came at a perfect time in the agenda tonight. I think USD 305 is really progressive, and they're always looking at how can we make things better for our students, and this is just another example of that. There's always something better we can do to serve them. So we want to also keep more students in their neighborhood schools with their peers, and I think that's a very, very important concept that we're really making great strides in that. We're also, on a parallel here, we're also working on our functional definition, our functional programs. We have a committee. We're going to meet here at the 1st of March again, and we're looking at those services. Again, making sure that kids are in the right program, getting the right services, and are out with their peers as much as they can in the school as well. So really focusing in on that and trying to be up to date there. Tonight, again, we'll talk about the program there at Lakewood. You can see the different, nobody gets my graphic up there, restructure, but low incidence classrooms involved. We had the ALC classroom at Stewart, the Autism program at Usener, Opportunity Now, the program at Lakewood, and the program at Meadowlark are the overall focus. So what did we do in 2021? The ALC program at Stewart had 34 Salina students, and we redistributed them back out into their neighborhood schools. Went very well. We moved 4 teachers and their paras also out, so feel that's been very positive move for the kids. We also moved Opportunity Now over to that Salina West campus, and we have really finished up several changes there. We put a washer dryer in, we put in a shower. A lot of we put in a walk-in freezer. If you haven't seen that, you need to go over and look. In that basement, they somehow, it's like an erector set, but they put a big walk-in freezer down there because we have that, we have our catering program that operates out of there, and they make the best cookies on earth, by the way. But they have this huge facility now in the basement. We used to have 11 freezers, and now they have this one walk-in freezer. So it's amazing what they got in there, and it's really working well for the program. So what are we doing this year? We're going to restructure the Usener Autism program. The students there are all Salina kiddos, and so we're going to send them back to their neighborhood schools in the fall. And then we're going to expand opportunity now to grades 6 through 8. So how does that impact Lakewood? And we've kind of talked about this before, but at Lakewood, there's 2 different programs within those services. One is the Therapeutic Learning Center, or classroom, we refer to it also. Those are the kids who have on-site direct mental health at the school all day, every day. And they have some pretty significant needs there. Great kids. I loved working with them there at Lakewood. But they really have some pretty individualized needs. So they will move with a teacher and paras, because we have 2 teachers and we have paras with each. They'll move with one of the teachers and paras over to Opportunity Now in the fall. And then the other teacher and paras will remain there at Lakewood and continue to operate that program. I can't really pull out a list of kids and say, well, here's kids that we know right now that are going, because that's not really how it works. I can kind of say, well, I think in my mind I might know a student that could benefit, but really in this situation they have to be in active mental health at that time, and it's really an individual IEP team decision, of course, with the parents right there in the meeting. So that's something that we'll be doing here, here the 4th quarter is meeting with those parents and kind of finalizing who's going to go and who's going to stay. So progress we've made so far. Of course, we have our teacher who's moving over to ON. We do know who that is. And we've been having orientation with her. It's really worked out well. USD 305 is having the 3 extra Connect to Learn days, as you know. We've been using those to work on we just had one, to work on programming, their daily schedule, incoming student needs. And then our building leadership team is providing guidance and insight on those days, working with the teachers. We currently at Opportunity Now have 3 teachers and I believe 8 paras for the 9 through 12. And we're going to add a 4th teacher that'll be middle school and probably 3 paras. We've got the room configuration figured out. Always when we're going to end up at Opportunity Now having kindergarten through 12th grade in one building, which seems odd in Salina, but if you just go out to one of our little districts, that's what they have all the time, There's really some cool things you can do with that too. But there are logistics of how to eat lunch, how do restrooms work, all those kinds of things. But that facility is awesome. It's really set up well where I think we can make that all work good for everybody involved. So we're kind of doing some orientation and things there. Just physical things like furniture, we really have not, we're doing this at a good time because we just came off a bond issue and there is furniture, there is materials available. So it's just sorting it out and finding what we need. And you don't really think about, high school kids one size and a 6th grader can be really much smaller, have different needs, for furniture. So we're just kind of working on that stuff right now. It's kind of exciting. 2 of our high school teachers really have taken off with this concept of middle school coming over. Mr. Peterson, I don't know if you know him, he's like teacher of the century kind of guy. Which is fantastic. He is an accomplished math teacher, so he's been talking with our middle school teacher that's coming over about what that's going to look like. Mr. Peterson also teaches summer school for the co-op, so he's got kind of a broad range of things going on there. And then Mr. Armbrust he's a real interesting guy too. A lot of interest in science and music, and he's actually in a band. So, music is not necessarily on his teaching license, but he is really interested in, and got me thinking about, well, what electives exactly are we going to have for those middle school kids? So he's talked me into something here with the music. This is one example of stuff they've come up with. They're going to do virtual reality music. And I've been on YouTube trying to watch, gosh, how in the world does that work? But they have stuff in person, and today I got this box in the mail, and there's a drum in it, so I know it's for them, But you do virtual reality. They got the whole setup for that, and then you buy software and you make music that way. So I'm getting old, I guess. I think, wow, how does all this work? But it really is fascinating, So Mr. Armbrust has kind of taken off with that. I guess we'll see how that goes. That's kind of the cool thing about working with special groups of kids sometimes. You can try all kinds of really neat stuff. So, they can learn to play individual instruments. They can actually make a piece of music that they play back. It's pretty cool. We'll have to show you some of that at some point. Again, working on the furnishings, I think John, our custodian who serves over there too, he just does an outstanding job. He's been scaring up all kinds of stuff. And then we've been talking about technology. What are the kids at Lakewood using currently? What are we going to set up over at the new facility? We're kind of talking through that right now. So Q4, again, we're going to have those IEP transition meetings and just make sure everybody's really, fully informed and helping make that decision. We'll have tours for the kids to come over. It's not a secret to anybody, we've been talking about this for over a year, but it's getting real, it's going to happen. So, and then we'll prep the kids who are definitely coming and just, do all kinds of transition activities with them. As far as there are a few things in the building that we haven't done yet. And we intentionally, when we moved 9th through 12th grade over, we knew there was a list of stuff we wanted to get done, but we've talked about half a basketball court outside. We were going to get that going once the middle school kids came. So there's some of those things this summer that Chris Upson was great to map all that out, but we have to do kind of that second phase of that. So we've tried to be very economical and get what the kids need, but so that's kind of an update. That's where we're at. Do you guys have any questions? I'd be glad to answer. Yes, Ann.
I'm curious, are you getting much pushback from parents on the changes? Some people tend not to like to change.
Sure, yeah. It's interesting. I think there's always a little bit of pushback. Yeah, parents have questions and those kinds of things. On this particular one, though, we're really kind of expanding, enhancing the mental health part of it. So it's a very, very desirable thing. People have been asking for this for a number of years. So this is like an easy sell, on this. It's often our staff that are a little more scared of the change or those kinds of things. But even on that, with this change, I haven't heard anything negative either. So some of our other restructure, people, they're bright folks and they have great questions, and change is hard. On this one, I guess we'll see if anything else kind of percolates up over the spring. But right now, everything's really positive, knock on wood. So,
Thank you.
Good question. Anybody else? Any
Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me. Great seeing everybody.
Item 8 on our agenda, school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. I've got no dates listed, so Ms. Emma, if you want to start with the board report.
Okay. I did make attend giving to Salina South High employees there Make a Difference Award, and they truly, truly appreciated that and was surprised. So they were glad they got those awards. I was able to participate with the legislator on House Bill 2086 because they held a hearing authorizing schools to maintain supplies of emergency medication and clarifying authority to administer such medication. The concern with some was who was going to administer these emergency medications. So was glad to have input into that. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Scott?
JAG's got some good postings that they're putting out there, so the program is really doing really well. Also, Heartland is progressing. They've got some new board members as well. So things are looking really good there as well. So that's about it.
Very good.
I got to present a couple of the You Make a Difference awards, one at Oakdale and one at Lakewood. That's always a neat time. And then attended a Parks and Rec board meeting.
I missed the last CKCIE meeting because of a prior commitment, but I will be there, I think, next Wednesday. So, and the Salina Education Foundation, we are in scholarship season, so we're accepting scholarships, application forms from Salina Central and Salina South graduates, upcoming graduates. We're also gearing up for the LIFT applications. Those deadlines were due January 31st. I will be attending for meetings for both of those next week. And also, I've been sending emails to Topeka on behalf of us, USD 305 and myself. I've heard back from one person. I think I've sent 20 emails, so we'll just keep working away.
Very good. Ian?
Yes, I attended the January Equity Council meeting, and we watched the video of Jane, whose last name I'm forgetting, who did the blue eye, brown eye experiment back in the 60s and has been a civil rights activist since then. She is quite an outspoken person who over and over will tell you there's only one race, it's the human race, and any other definition of race is a construct that somebody made up just to make the whites superior. I presented a couple of You Make a Difference awards to Rosemary Gearing at Cottonwood and Lynn Boxman at Sunset. Had several exchanges with Clark Sanders. That's who was talking to Emma about the medication in the classrooms, and so I'm really happy that he's been willing to ask me questions about education things, that he's on the education committee. I was going to say that, well, and he's also talked to Lynn. I'm sure she probably mentioned that, but there was one question I didn't know so well. I just said, talk to Lynn, she really knows, and he said, have her call me up, and that's really great. He's been listening to us. Today, I went to a discussion by the League of Women Voters legislative liaison in Topeka, and I wanted to share a few things that I learned there. Things are just going at a breakneck speed in Topeka, and Clark told me that too. They had a preliminary hearing on something in the morning that he'd never heard anything about before, and had like an hour on that, and then in the afternoon they had final hearings on that same issue, and everything is going so fast. And Paul Johnson is the guy who talked today to the League of Women Voters, and he said that they are sort of worried that COVID-19 is going to shut them down at some point, so they're doing everything 10 times as fast as they normally would. It's only the 20th day of a 90-day session, and they're already trying to finish up a bunch of things. He said that he talked about Senate Bill 22, which cuts corporate taxes. It allows, in the past, there was a federal bill that said that you could take this big standard deduction, but if you took this federal standard deduction, at the federal level, you couldn't itemize at the state level, and this bill would authorize itemizing at the state level, and it only affects about 8 to 10% of the filers in Kansas, but it costs $250 million to the budget, so that's we schools are often worried about the total budget, and that's a little dent, a $250 million dent in the total general fund. Another one is the vouchers, that they're sort of fast-tracking the vouchers right now. And in current law, you can get a voucher if you are a student, or if your student is in one of the 100 worst schools in Kansas, and if they are eligible for free lunches. And the new rule, well, there's also a $10 million, I think this is right, $10 million cap on the number of vouchers they can give out. They're expanding the vouchers law to all the schools in the state, not just the 100 worst schools. And you qualify not only if you get free lunch, but if you only get reduced lunches. And it's open to, all the schools in the state. Apparently, you can use your voucher for any school, whether it's accredited or not, private school, parochial school. And Paul Johnson's reading on this was that this is a little incremental step on the way to taking off the cap of the funding. So not only could we spend $10 million for these vouchers, but more. But this current law that they're trying to pass right now keeps the $10 million cap, but it opens it up to many more students in many more schools. That's all for now. Thank you.
I failed to mention at our last meeting in January, in December, my wife and younger son and I had an opportunity to volunteer at the Communities and Schools Clothing and Supplies Drive they held in December 15th or so. I've forgotten the exact date. But Nate Teese, who's the coach at Salina Central Women's Basketball, is in charge of that program for Salina. It's a program I didn't know a whole lot about, but if you don't know much about it, look up Communities and Schools at Salina Central and Lakewood. It really is a benefit to students in need at those places, and we enjoyed that experience. So I apologize for failing to mention that last month. I had a chance to deliver 2 You Make a Difference awards, both at Salina Central. It was kind of fun because I went in and Dr. Brunghart said, hey, we need to go down to the nurses station. So I got to walk, I haven't really got to wander halls in a building for a long time. So we went from the main office all the way down to the nurses station where, as Jennifer said, Danelle Sapo was located, and she was just surprised as could be. A couple of her colleagues got to watch, and it was just really heartwarming for all of us to have that. And then back to the office, the other person who was recognized there is Laura Hinka, who serves as Dr. Brunghart's assistant. And she was kind of looking, what are you doing in my office with this guy? And it was nice. She was almost in tears by the time it was done. So it was really, really nice to have that. Smoky Hill Education Service Center, they meet again on Thursday. This is kind of the rotation, but at our last meeting, there were 2 things of note that I thought you all should know about. One is the board voted to extend the 3 administrator contracts for another year. So Mr. Malamog and Diane Mann and the other administrator have been extended. Another thing that I thought was interesting, we hear a lot about the Payroll Protection Act. This was kind of a good thing. Mr. Malamog told us that they couldn't qualify for that act because they didn't lose enough money. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of negatives in that phrase, but I came out as a positive that overall finances at Smoky Hill were pretty good because we couldn't qualify for that Payroll Protection Act. Salina Education Foundation, I think Dana said, but the executive board meets tomorrow in this building over lunch, and then Smoky Hill's next meeting is Thursday evening. So those things are rapidly approaching, and I'll tell you more next month. Thank you.
I attended a CKCIE Board of Control meeting and a Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, and then got to present a You Make a Difference Award at Stewart Elementary School. Got to wander through a building and interrupt some sustained silent reading time, so that was great. Next on our agenda, item 9, Superintendent's Report.
Okay, just a couple updates for you. We did complete principal interviews, and on the consent agenda, you approved the appointment of Brandon Cheeks as the Sunset Principal and Scott Krisman as the Lakewood Principal. And so we're really excited about those changes, and very positive interviews, strong candidate pool, and so I'm really pleased to be able to announce that. wanted you to know that had several thank yous on the Connect to Learn days. We had our first one on Monday, and so I want to say on behalf of the staff, thank you for that time. Well used, people felt like it was valuable and that will help them better meet students' needs, and so thank you for that. We were able to deliver UB boxes on Monday to Cottonwood. That was in conjunction with the Credit Union of America, and those are boxes of student supplies. Each box has supplies for 30 students, and so what a nice gift that Credit Union of America provided to the students at Cottonwood. I want you to know that we are, Lisa Peters and I have started our site council rounds, and we are meeting with each site council virtually is what we've done so far to just discuss an update on the Salina Public Schools and an update on budget and to just engage in conversation with our building level site council members. And that's always fun to do. I miss doing that in person, but it has certainly been nice to connect with those members who spend so much time on our behalf, on our students' behalf, even though that's a virtual connection. Wanted you to know I got good news yesterday, and then I noticed that it became public today, that it is likely we will start vaccinating teachers next week. And so that is very, very positive news. And the other piece of really positive news is that Salina Family Health Center and the Saline County Health Department, they are going to work out a way to do that outside of school hours, to do some extended school hours, so that our teachers have access and we don't have a situation with substitutes. And so I am so appreciative that they were willing to make adjustments and do that. And so that is great news. And again, on February 15th, I've encouraged staff to go ahead and get registered so that they know how many people are wanting vaccines. We did an informal survey, and we know that about 700 people were wanting, some 770, I think is the number, were wanting vaccines at the time that we did that informal survey. And so we'll go ahead and encourage folks to get registered so that we can have a good count and get moving on that. Also wanted you to know that the State Board of Education today is looking at a new document called Navigating Next. You'll remember last summer we started to talk about the document Navigating Change, that was a guidance document for us as we were trying to figure out how do we do school in the midst of a pandemic. Navigating Next is the next step and will give us guidance. I'm looking forward to reading through it. Should be released publicly tomorrow, but will give us guidance on what do we do moving forward, what are the recommendations educationally, as we try to figure out how do we fill in gaps in learning that were caused by either intermittent schooling or just lack of access to schooling. In some cases, we have students that left to do different kinds of schooling, and so how do we best position ourselves to meet their needs moving forward? So it's exciting to see that we have some future steps outlined and that it's maybe time that we're kind of seeing the other side. I have had multiple email exchanges with legislators, as Ann mentioned. I want to bring to your attention two different bills. The first one is House Bill 2119. It is about education savings accounts. And I want you to, it really is a voucher bill. It would take money away from public schools, and with students that have high needs with learning, especially as we're talking about trying to fill in holes caused by the pandemic, shifting tax dollars away from public schools right now where we educate all students is something that I clearly am not in support of. Under this legislation, private schools are not required to meet the same standards as public schools in terms of teacher licensure, in terms of assessments, and in terms of just achievement reporting as well. And so we really, I would take the position that public dollars need to fund schools that support all students. And then the other one is House Bill 2039. That is a bill that is promoting having a civics test as a requirement for graduation. And I just want to let you know that there is a state statute that requires that all students, in order to graduate from high school, do have to pass an American government class. And so if you're asked about that, you could certainly say that is a requirement to graduate from high school as it is right now. All of our students in Salina do take a course that has American government concepts. And in fact, they learn concepts that are American government-based at grades 3, 5, 8, and in high school. And so there's a thread of American government constitution through the standards clear up that starts when they're at a very young age. And I think that's it. So.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, item 11A, we have an executive session for negotiations. How many minutes are we thinking there?
I would say 35.
Okay. It's very specific.
I was going to say 30, but it always takes us longer than what I think. So you do what you want with that 35.
No, you seem very sure, so I think let's roll with it. 35 minutes. Do we want to give we're going to go to the Schmidt room because of the number of people we anticipate inviting in. So maybe give us 5 minutes to get there at 7:15. Is there someone who would make that motion? Yes.
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 7:15 for 35 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize the resolution of the negotiation issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:40? 50. 7:50. Thank you for your help.
In the Schmidt room.
In the Schmidt room.
Thank you. Second by Mark. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Will we reconvene in here?
Yes,
Okay. After the personnel.
after both executive sessions,
Okay.
you'll reconvene.
We're in recess until 7:15. We're gonna move to executive session in the Schmidt room. We do, item 12 on our agenda, any action that might be necessary from those executive sessions. We'll come back after executive session to this room in the live stream, to take any action and to adjourn the meeting. I'll call our meeting back to order here. We have no action to take after our executive sessions. We'll take a motion to adjourn. In a second. Thank you. Motion in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Have a great rest of your February.